Okay, so when you hear the name Hercules, what comes to mind? Probably some cartoon hero, right? A big, triumphant, strong man. Well, today we're going to peel all of that back. We're getting into the original, much darker story of the Greek hero Heracles. And that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? What actually makes a hero? Is it their godlike power? Or was he a hero forged in the fires of tragedy? A man whose entire life was this constant, brutal battle against a fate he never, ever chose. So to really get this, we've got to go right back to the beginning. His birth name was actually Alkaios. He was the son of a mortal woman, Alcmene, and this is the most important part, the king of the gods himself, Zeus. And that right there, that divine parentage, it's proof that Zeus cheated on his wife. And that is the root cause of all his problems. And that brings us straight to chapter 1, and to his one true, absolutely relentless enemy, the queen of the gods, Hera. You see, from the second he was conceived, Heracles was basically a walking, breathing billboard of Hera's humiliation. I mean, Zeus had a lot of illegitimate kids, but for some reason, Heracles became the singular focus of her legendary rage. She would stop at absolutely nothing to destroy him. And Hera's plans were just cold and calculated. First, she tricks Zeus, steals Heracles' birthright as king before he's even born, and makes sure his kind of pathetic cousin Eurystheus gets the throne instead. She even tries to stop him from being born at all. When that doesn't work, she sends assassins. But here's the thing. Even as a baby, you could see who Heracles was. Two giant snakes crawl into his crib. His twin brother starts screaming in terror. And Heracles? He just grabs one in each hand and crushes them. It was the very first hint of the unbelievable hero he was going to become. You know, the crazy irony of Hera's hatred is summed up perfectly in this one story. So Athena finds the baby Heracles, who's been abandoned, and brings him to an unsuspecting Hera. Hera actually feels sorry for him and starts to nurse him. But he suckles with this supernatural strength, and it hurts her. So she shoves him away, and her divine milk sprays across the heavens, creating, you guessed it, the Milky Way. So in this one wild moment, his greatest enemy accidentally gives him his incredible powers. So after somehow surviving his childhood, Heracles actually finds a little bit of peace. He becomes this great warrior, he marries a princess, Megara, and they have 3 sons together. And for a little while, just for a moment, he has the life he's supposed to have. He's a respected champion, a family man. But of course, for a man cursed by a goddess, peace is never going to last. Hera was just waiting for the moment he was happiest to strike her most devastating blow. And what she does is just unspeakable. This horrific act, you have to understand, it was not his choice. Hera drives him completely insane, a madness so total that he sees his own family as his enemies, and he slaughters them. When the madness finally lifts, he's left with this crushing, unbearable grief and a guilt that will haunt him for the rest of his life. I mean, can you imagine? He's desperate for any way to atone, to purify himself, so he goes to the famous oracle at Delphi. And in another just cruel, twisted bit of fate, the oracle, who is of course being guided by Hera, sentences him to serve the one man who stole his throne, his cousin, King Eurystheus. And this sentence? This kicks off the most famous part of his entire story, the 12 Labors. But let's be clear, these are not glorious adventures. No way. This is a decade-long punishment. It's an impossible quest for forgiveness, and every single task is designed by his weakest, most jealous rival. So Eurystheus originally commands him to perform 10 labors. But the king is just looking for any excuse to keep Heracles suffering, so he rejects 2 of them on these ridiculous technicalities. That meant adding 2 more to the list, and that's how we get the legendary number 12. All right, labor number 1, slay the Nemean lion. This was a monster whose golden fur was impenetrable. No weapon could pierce it. So what does Heracles do? He corners the beast in its own cave and strangles it to death with his bare hands. Then, he uses the lion's own claw to skin it, and he wears that impenetrable hide as his armor from then on. Next up was the Lernaean Hydra, a nasty, venomous water serpent that grew 2 new heads for every one you managed to chop off. He couldn't just brute force this one. He needed help from his nephew, Iolaus, who would sear the neck stumps with a torch after Heracles cut off a head. They finally defeat it, but because he had help, the jealous King Eurystheus refused to even count it towards the sentence. Just unbelievable. Okay, so after 9 more absolutely impossible tasks, I'm talking everything from cleaning the filthiest stables in the world to stealing golden apples from the literal edge of it, we get to his final 12th labor. And to top it all off, Eurystheus orders him to go down into the underworld itself and bring back its terrifying guardian, the 3-headed dog Kerberos. And he does it. He wrestles the beast into submission and drags it, kicking and screaming, into the world of the living. He completes a task that is literally the stuff of nightmares. So after 10 years, 12 impossible tasks, and a journey to hell and back, Heracles is finally free. His crime is atoned for. You'd think that would be it, right? But his tragic fate, that curse that has followed him since birth, oh, it was far from finished with him. His end didn't come from a god or some giant monster. It came from a poisoned gift. A dying centaur tricks Heracles' new wife, Deianira, making her believe his blood is a love potion. Years go by, and she starts to worry Heracles' eye is wandering, so she soaks a shirt in the centaur's blood. But it wasn't a love charm. It was a vicious poison that fused to his skin, literally burning him alive. In this unimaginable agony, the strongest man in the world could only find one way out. He builds his own funeral pyre and chooses to die. But for Heracles, death wasn't really the end. It was more of a transformation. After a life that was just defined by suffering, suffering caused by the gods, his final chapter was going to be written among them. You see, his mortal body burned away on that pyre, but his divine spirit was lifted right up to Mount Olympus. And there, finally, he was granted the immortality he had more than earned. He even reconciles with Hera, his lifelong tormentor. She gives him her own daughter, Hebe, the goddess of youth, to marry. So in the end, he truly transcended the suffering that had defined his entire life on Earth. And his story isn't just locked away in some ancient book. The hero's name literally echoes on our maps today. If you look at the city of İRELI in modern Turkey, that name is a direct linguistic descendant of Heracles. It's a permanent geographical reminder of his enduring legacy. Which brings us all the way back to our final question. After everything he went through, was his story one of triumph? A man who suffered everything imaginable and still became a god? Or was he ultimately just a pawn in a divine game? His heroism nothing more than a reaction to the unbelievable cruelty of fate. That's the paradox, isn't it? And it's what makes his story one of the most tragic and maybe one of the most human in all of mythology.